right, let's see what you guys came up with. I asked you to draw punctuated equilibrium in a phylogenetic tree. Let's see what everybody drew. Oh, very good. I like that. Kind of looks like a pitchfork a little bit. All right. Let's go down. There. Okay, another phylogenetic tree in punctuated equilibrium. Okay. Whoa. Yep, there's another one. Yes, I see the tree. Okay. Yes, very good. So punctuated equilibrium should be drawn in these sort of branched off where you have a drastic change. It's punctuated, right? It's not this gradual linear graph, and that's what I was hoping you would draw. So today we're going to look at macroevolution in a few different ways. This is basically evolution at the species or higher level of classification, and some evolutionists support what's called a gradualistic model. Now, evolution at the species level occurs gradually, and speciation occurs after populations become isolated, and each group continues its own evolution pathway, and the gradualistic model suggests that it is difficult to indicate when speciation occurs. So it'd be like me saying that we are in the middle of creating a new species of humans in America. There'd be no way for me to prove that. I would need millions of generations to compare to each other, and I just can't do that in a real-time setting. Unless we're growing bacteria, then we can, right? So this gradualistic model, it's very hard to gather evidence and show how it is happening, but we know that evolution is not a fast process. It's something that usually happens gradually. And I would say 90% of the time, this is how evolution happens. That's a made-up statistic, but most of the time, this is how evolution happens. Because remember, the source of evolution is mutations, the source of new alleles. And those don't happen at a very high rate. And my pen is not working. I think my battery's weekend to do notes. I lied. We can't do notes. My pen's not working. It says my Mobi's disconnected, but I have no idea why. See if that's working now. There we go. I forgot. Oh, dear. Well, underline the important terms. Sorry, guys. So I forgot to leave blanks or put blanks in that last little bit. Don't worry. You won't have to write. I know you're all worried about it. If you see a word that is like italicized in my notes, please highlight it. Okay. So some paleontologists look at macroevolution and they say, okay, punctuated equilibrium could occur. And the reason why paleontologists view the punctuated model is because something is not there. What is not there in the fossils that the paleontologists are looking at? Why do paleontologists only view that punctuated model a lot of the times? Help me out here. What do you guys come up with? It's kind of not a no-brainer, but a little bit. I mean, so that's where you get drastic shifts in a species. All of a sudden, a new species just shows up. Why do paleontologists use this model a lot of the times? Something's not there. You tell me. Be wrong. Take a stab at it. What could be not evident that paleontologists might not get that I can get in real time, so to speak? I might have just misled you a little bit, but not intentionally. Let's see what you guys came up with. The physical appearances of the animal, feather, scale. Yeah, okay, so not all the features will be there. All right. I like this one. They can't see the intermediate species, right? So the missing link you will never have in a fossil record, right? You know, remember the unique conditions that need to be there. I know I misled you with DNA because that one popped in my head. I was like, oh, yeah, they're probably going to put DNA. But you're not wrong in saying paleontologists don't have DNA, but really it's those transitional intermediate fossils, good job, that are missing, okay? So why is that important? Well, we know that speciation happens gradually. We know that we only have from the past fossils to look at, but in science, you have to have what to show that you're incorrect or correct? You have to have evidence, okay? And so the evidence we have supports a lot of times the punctuated equilibrium model, although we know by looking at things like bacteria and DNA mutating that it happens through gradualism and is a much more gradual process than that. But in science, we need evidence. You don't get to just make something up and say it happened that way. You must support it with data, okay? And that's why this punctuated model exists. Species can appear quite suddenly in this model. No, remember, in this model. I'm not teaching you a fact right now. I'm teaching you in this model. They all of a sudden just appear. Now we know there are many steps to get where you ended up through gradualism, but in a punctuated model, we're only looking at the new ones just showing up in like a fossil record. So species then remain essentially unchanged phenotypically during a period of stasis or sameness until they undergo extinction. So the reason, Kane, I see a lot of, and Mr. Trogan, I see a lot of these species show up at one period of time is due to one particular thing. Why in the fossil record do I see like mass quantities of a fossil show up at one time? Please tell me. Why do I see fossils in these like eras or periods? No, just type something in. Be wrong. It's okay. It's okay to be wrong. A large event killed them, right? Extinction. The rhino barn. I don't. Somebody explain the rhino barn. Okay. I didn't have that one in my permanent memory. I do now. Extinction. Extants. Yes, all the extants and extinctions that occur. Okay, very good. So this model states that periods of equilibrium are punctuated by speciation. So it's not that we don't believe in, or it's not that genetics and all that don't show that gradualism happens up until a certain point. It's just we get these mass extinctions where a bunch of species got killed at one time, so we get like this huge snapshot of fossils, like a big picture of the way the world was at that moment. And then things become very stable and conducive to life for a long period of time, like millions of years, and then another massive catastrophic event and kills a bunch of other things off. Okay? And so we get these snapshots in millions of years, and so it looks like our history is punctuated. It looks like we have all this drastic change. But if you're a geneticist or a biologist, you understand that mutations happen very slowly, and that you only get a new alleles by mutations, and it takes a very, very many generations to get the change you would need to develop into a new protein, let alone a new species. Okay? So just think about humans. We've been around for right around 4 to 5 million years, depending on who you talk to. Okay? Of that time, we developed into all these different races of people from basically an early hominid, but it took a long time to get just those differences, and we're still the same species, right? We haven't even changed over 4 to 5 million years. Oh. So when you look at the two models, this would be gradualism, and we know this is how evolution occurs. However, the fossil record shows us punctuated equilibrium. Do you get the difference between those two? I mean, it's not that gradualism isn't happening in this model. It's just we don't have the physical fossil evidence to show it. Can I, with bacteria, do genotypes and actually track the change of a bacterial species from one to another? I can. Okay, and we can see the evolution of a virus, and I can actually track gradualism. But if I took a snapshot, let's say 10 years ago of HIV, and then a snapshot of all the HIV we have today, would it look gradual or would it look punctuated? It would look punctuated. Okay. So looking more at macroevolution, developmental genes and macroevolution, genes that can bring about radical changes in the body of shapes and organs. We're talking about Hox genes and things of that nature. But gene expression can influence development. A change in gene expression could stop a developmental process or continue it beyond its normal time. So let's say we can't control HGH. What's HGH? Human growth, like Barry Bonds, right? Okay. So HGH, human growth hormone. If you keep making that your whole life, you have what's called acromegaly. It's a disease where you don't stop the expression of that gene, and you end up like Andre the Giant, or some believe Abraham Lincoln also had acromegaly, okay, where he never stopped growing. Although the Abraham Lincoln was a little controversial, but definitely Andre the Giant was diagnosed with it. You can have the lack of it too. That's called dwarfism, which is not the same as being a little person. I don't know what the politically correct term is, but I'm going with that one. Okay. So using modern technology, researchers discovered genes whose differential expressions can bring about changes in the body shapes and organs. One of those is the PAX6. This is in the eye development. Okay. Anybody ever seen a fly's eyes? They're prismatic, right? Okay. So if I don't stop developing my eyes and I divide them more or at an earlier stage, I have more eyes. And then we have the TBX5 in the limb development. This leads into a lot of the arthropods out there and the multi-segmented creatures. And then we have, of course, the Hox genes, which definitely applies to us in the development of the overall shape. This means where your head, where your spinal cord, and where your tail is. If these genes get mixed up, we have a problem. Anybody know the one thing that we have a problem with in Michigan that affects our Hox genes during early development? Some people call it a disease. We use it to kill bacteria. Fetal alcohol syndrome. Yeah. So, I know, and this is one thing that, I know you guys aren't these students or people in the world, but one thing that mothers, uneducated mothers, don't understand is when they drink alcohol, it affects the Hox gene development. Sometimes you get malformed spinal cords because it's affecting and mutating and changing the development and the expression of the Hox genes, which can cause like spina bifida, right? Exposed spinal cord. Imagine having a baby born with a fully exposed spinal cord, no spine around the cord, right? Pretty painful, yeah. And so these genes can be influenced both by mistakes and the environment you put them in, much like our bacteria friends over there. Okay, so you can have the gene or you can express the gene or not express the gene in some cases. So keep in mind, if you mix these genes up, you can have extra limbs be formed. We've all heard of that happening, right? The baby's born with an extra limb. Okay, fetal alcohol syndrome, another one. Malformed organs, malformed limbs. All of that affecting these three different sets of genes. I say sets of genes because there are literally thousands of genes in each of these sets. Okay? It's not just one gene. So looking at the Hox genes, I talked briefly about it. This is an organism here, a fetal organism. I don't know exactly what this one is, but I believe it's what? I thought I was going to say it was a bird, but I didn't want to say it without knowing. And then this is definitely not a bird. This looks more like a snake. Okay? And so if I take a look at these two developing, they have the same basic sets of genes. It tells them where their head is, where their backbone is, and where their tail is. So you can see, obviously, there are more of these genes within a snake that develop that spinal cord than there are of a chick. Why? Snakes have a longer vertebral column. That's simple. Both vertebrates. But both have them. Every vertebrate. Doesn't matter if you're a human, a monkey, a chicken, a duck, a snake has the Hox genes. Okay. We'll work through that on Monday. Okay. So macroevolution is not goal-oriented. The evolution of the horse or the equus has been studied since the 1870s. It's one your book uses as an illustrative example. It is a model for gradual straight-line evolution with the modern horse as its goal, which means we can actually see the more gradual process and not the punctuated process we normally see. So there's three trends that were particularly evident during the evolution of the horse. They increase in overall size, the toe reduction, meaning they got a shorter hoof, and the change in tooth size and shape as you go from the smaller to the larger horse. All of that showing a gradualistic evolution. Now, not all species are like that. We don't get to see speciation occur in all different varieties of animals on Earth. But in horses, we can actually see the gradualism occur. That's a rare example. Okay? And you should understand, if they ever asked you for an example on a test of gradualism, bring up the horse. It's a good one. Okay? Versus punctuated equilibrium as a fossil record. So the discovery of more fossils has led to the recognition that the lineage of a horse is complicated by the presence of many ancestors with varied traits, and the direct answer of equus is unknown, even though we can see gradualism within the horse population. Each ancestral species was adapted to its environment, whereas speciation, diversification, and extinction are common occurrences within that fossil record. We don't see it in real-time gradualism as much. Why? It takes a lot of time. Okay? So there's your horse population, just kind of taking a look where we've tracked where they are. And we do have a more gradualistic fossil record of horses, even going back 5 million years ago. Okay? But then we look at our current modern horse, and we can even see the evolution of them through gradualism as well. Okay? So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to say take your break where you still get to see your friends for about 5 minutes. Come back in 5 minutes, and we will have our round table. Okay? Be ready to report.